On January 6, 2021, I was in quarantine recovering from COVID-19. As I read and watched TV to pass the time, I began to see early reports of the attack on the US Capitol. I saw the events of that dreadful day unfold in real time. Former President Donald J. Trump clearly incited an insurrection while peddling the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen. This was nothing short of an attempt to overthrow a legitimate election. This attempted coup resulted in 5 fatalities, 140 police officers injured, and untold amounts of psychological trauma experienced by many. These atrocities were done by self-described patriots. Even before the dust settled from all the Trump-supporting rioting, right-wing media outlets and Republican elected officials began to rewrite history through blame shifting and baseless conspiracy theories. The rioters were actually members of Antifa and Black Lives Matter, masquerading as Trump supporters. It was all a setup by the deep state Democrats or a false flag operation of the FBI. How absurd! This is not the first time that the U.S. has been harmed by the acceptance of a false narrative. Bryan Stevenson, founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative, has said, "While the North won the Civil War, the South won the narrative war." Stevenson was largely referring to the myth of the lost cause, which began to take root in the South and beyond, starting in the 1800s. The lost cause is the false, romanticized narrative that the Confederates were heroic and their cause was noble. The lost cause not only was a systematic effort to whitewash the ugliness of chattel slavery, but also a backlash to the African American progress seen during the Reconstruction era. By 1915, the lost cause had seeped into the mainstream of American thought. During this period, the second iteration of the Ku Klux Klan was formed and began using the Confederate flag as its emblem. Interestingly, what we now know as the Confederate flag never was the official battle flag of the Confederacy. Rather, it was best known as the battle flag of General Robert E. Lee's Northern Virginia Army Unit. In fact, the Confederacy went through several different flags during the Civil War, none of which was the current Confederate flag. Shortly after the Civil War, the Confederate flag was largely a forgotten relic. That is, until the myth of the lost cause was popularized. In the middle of the 20th century, the battle flag experienced another resurgence, and this wasn't by accident. This time, the flag exploded into prominence in reaction to the African American struggle for civil rights. As advances were made in this struggle, the flag became more visible. Segregationist mobs, white citizen councils, Southern Democrats or Dixiecrats, and other Jim Crow proponents joined the Klan in displaying this despicable flag. Several Southern states also incorporated Confederate iconography as a part of their state flags. This was not done to honor fallen Confederate soldiers who had died almost a century earlier, but to enshrine white supremacy. Fast forward to 2008. The nation's first black president, Barack Obama, was elected to his first term. Some thought we had entered a post-racial America, They were wrong. Reactionary and white grievance politics began to grow, as evidenced by the emergence of the Tea Party. And this occurred in the year 2009. Confederate flags often could be seen at Tea Party rallies. On June 17, 2015, a despicable act of domestic terrorism was carried out by Dylann Roof, a white supremacist and neo-Nazi. Roof went into Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church of Charleston, South Carolina, where he shot and killed 9 worshipers, all of whom were black. He had previously displayed the Confederate flag on his website and left a racist manifesto. Likewise, the Confederate flag was on full display at the Unite the Right rally that occurred in Charlottesville, Virginia in August 2017. After the rally that resulted in a white supremacist terrorist attack, Trump infamously declared there were very fine people on both sides. Moreover, since 2015, Confederate flags have become a welcomed staple at MAGA rallies. Now, we have come full circle to January 6, 2021. To me, one of the most sickening sights of this day was that of the Confederate flag being carried into the Capitol. This never had been done before, not even during the Civil War. But in retrospect, this makes perfect sense. The Confederate flag being proudly carried into the Capitol 2 years ago tells us all we need to know about the insurrection. At its core, it was about white supremacy. Ben Jealous, president of People for the American Way, has said, "The people spreading lies about the Capitol insurrection are the spiritual heirs to the daughters of the Confederacy. They are the ideological descendants of those who spent decades lying to the American public about slavery and the Civil War." Jealous also said Trump's claim that his victory was stolen by black and brown voters in corrupt cities was the lie that fueled the insurrection. It was repeated endlessly on right-wing media. Republicans who deny or downplay the insurrectionist attempt to overturn the presidential election are creating their own lost cause ideology. The same big lie that led to the insurrection is being used to justify new voter suppression laws focused on making it harder for black and brown people to vote. Yes, the myth of the lost cause and the insurrection at the Capitol both were based on big lies. The aim of both was the maintenance of white supremacy. Until we are honest about this, America will not truly be the land of the free and the home of the brave.